رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. سيدي إن لم يجبك بدني عند استغاثتك ولساني عند استنصارك فقد أجابك قلبي وسمعي وبصري. لبيك داعي الله لبيك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي قمر بني هاشم كفيل الهواشم أبا الفضل العباس. السلام عليكم جميعا يا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What defines a true alim? The ulama, there are numerous reports from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt and the Messenger of God, and even before them Allah within the Quran, are seen as the second greatest thing to the infallibles of the creation of Allah. We have traditions of the like such as al-ulama warathatul anbiya, that the alim is the product of the prophet. The anbiya left behind inheritance to this temporary abode we call ad-dunya. What they left behind were the ulama. They are the recipients of that which the prophets of God's, from 124,000 of them, they are that produce, they are that fruit, they are that extension. We have traditions like the ink of the scholar is more valuable than the blood of the martyr. This is a sahih hadith without shadow of doubt. It is to highlight that anyone who becomes a shaheed in the way of Allah, they took the advice of the alim first. They were using the scholar as a lens to determine haqq versus batil. That way they became a shaheed. Therefore, the ink of the scholar, the fatwa, the statement, the writing, that is much more valuable than the dam of the shaheed. Now, of course, it's even more honorable to be an alim that's a shaheed at the same exact time. Notice that the word alim is general. It's am. Anyone can be an alim. The term alim doesn't denote age. At any age you can be an alim. The term alim doesn't denote gender. You can be an alim or an alima. It just means that which has and contains knowledge, ilm. The root of it is ilm, knowledge and education and wisdom. Notice that this subject, Allah when speaking about it, He says that there are only a group of people. They are the ones that have true khushu' in relation to God. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. So God has already divided the ibad into categories. All of you are ibad of Allah. We are what we call Abdullah. But from among them, ulama. Min ibadihi al-ulama, they have true khushu'. Khushu' means humility. I genuinely have understood my God. In the world of mysticism, the wayfarers will call you the arif, from the term of irfan, the one who has ma'rifa billah. Whatever term you decide to use, ultimately this is a high status. The problem, however, is there are many charlatans. There are many pseudo-scholar claimants. And many fall prey to this because there are very reductive ways of determining today what an alim means. For many, one of these very reductive. If they have this, quickly call them an alim. For example, if they are a speaker, just because the person can say a few words together, make them sound nice, doesn't mean they are a scholar. Not every speaker is a scholar. And not every scholar is a speaker. Think of some of the greatest of the ulama that you cherish and love. Many of us, not only have we not met them, we haven't even heard them, for example, but we see their results as clear as the sun behind the cloud. I don't necessarily need to see you, but I know I can see that you have shined your light across the world from the ilm that you've produced, from the hikmah, from the wisdom. Quickly though, however, people can jump to conclusions. Oftentimes, we also experience shell shock. We become absolutely distraught when we see someone who we assumed was a scholar, but in deep reality was never an alim, perform a violation. Because now, this is even worse. We have one quote by one of the greatest ulama to have walked this earth. He says, إِذَا فَسَدَ الْعَالِمْ فَسَدَ الْعَالَمْ. If the scholar becomes corrupt, the alim, the world becomes corrupt. Because how many people anchor their life on the ulama at the end of the day? But here's the question. Is someone, or is a scholar, someone who is ever able to become corrupt? If they've genuinely understood the teachings and the ma'alim of Ahlul Bayt, a true alim, if you have ilm, you would never separate from it. You would never let go of it. So deep down inside, was this person a genuine scholar from the get-go and the beginning? So we have to identify some of these red flags quickly. The first of this is, I've heard a speaker say it, but we use speaker and scholar interchangeable. Brothers and sisters, that is dangerous. We are treading dangerous waters. In conclusion, the institution of the scholastic seminary of the 1,400 years of effort that was paved through the pen and blood of our scholars exists for a reason. If a speaker hasn't touched that institution, be it in the Hawza of Qom, be it in the Hawza of Najaf al-Ashraf, Babu Madinati Ilmi Rasulillah, be it in Mashhad, be it in Tahran, be it in elsewhere where there is a credible institution, if they haven't touched that world, then they cannot claim the title of being an alim. CV, resume, look at what they have to offer. Not just because someone's not an alim or an alimah, by the way. Let's not forget, this is not gender exclusive. May Allah have mercy on the marhuma, al-alima, al-fadila, al-mujtahida, al-sayyida, Amin al-Sadr, the sister Shahida of a Sayyid Shahid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, or the daughter of Ayatollah al-Sayyid al-Barujurdi. He personally trained her and she became a mujtahida. Or the wife of Ayatollah al-Sheikh Mishkini, she became a mujtahida fadila. We have many of these wonderful examples of Ayatollah women folk as well, who are genuine mujtahids, studied the halal of Muhammad, the haram of Muhammad, and they knew the ahkam of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, and they attained that high, beautiful status. However, just because someone isn't a scholar, that doesn't mean they can't share their opinion. Because if people are entitled to their opinion, they have the right to share it as well. The only concern is when we start asking them for fiqh-related questions. What's your opinion on this matter? You shouldn't have an opinion if the scholars have given their opinion already. You are entitled to one, but you can't share weak information out there. That is going to spread fitna and corruption. You're entitled to your point of view, but we can't be in a place and we have no right to say this is the way, when I know for a fact I haven't even bothered reading the Holy Quran. I haven't even bothered understanding the methodologies and the modalities of interpreting hadith. And by the way, one of the other accusations leveled is, hold on, listen, I have to implore my independent thinking because I can't just do blind emulation. The term taqleed, people reduce it to emulate. You emulate, you follow, mimic the scholar. And where can I see, even in the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, that they even sanction this? Ultimately, the word taqleed is from the root like a necklace. What is the connection? A necklace in Arabic is called qilada. It's something you wear around your neck. It's an expression to say that I have put my area of jurisprudence and Islamic law around your neck. So if I'm wrong, I just followed your advice. Because naturally, there are scriptural ways to look at this and there are logical ways. Logically, very simply put, if there are two very highly achieved and accomplished doctors, surgeons, when it's surgery, it's not a joke, by the way. So go to a doctor, what's your advice? Okay, I might follow your advice, but when you're under the knife, it's different. I want the best quality surgeon. This is my heart that you're talking about. Don't find anything but the best. But the thing is, I ran into two. Both of them are accessible. I need to follow and be guided by the one who was the absolute more intelligent. Now, I haven't studied medical school. I haven't gone 16 years of rotation. Very horrific, by the way. God help all our doctors and nursing students and medical students here, mashallah. I haven't been separated by my family from my family because I needed to go study in this, work in this hospital and get rotated to this one. I haven't, for example, been indebted 40,000, 400,000, whatever the case may be. I haven't done this ijtihad, i.e. jihad. That's why they're called mujtahids. They've done so much effort to get to where they are. So I don't know these intricacies. How do you exactly operate under the knife? So what do? I naturally resort to the experts. I look at what other medical experts have said. I see some of the reviews. I read into the hospital they manage, their department, and then I decide I'm going to follow your advice. Even if it makes no sense to me. We don't have a problem following the advice of a medical, physical doctor and scholar, but many run to quickly judge and say, why should we follow the advice of a spiritual doctor? It's the same exact thing. If you concern yourself about your physical health, are you going to neglect your spiritual health? Habibi, even the secular world acknowledges the existence of the spirit. There are movements these days, they call themselves spiritual but not religious. We don't follow organized religion, but we're spiritual but not religious. Sometimes they hug trees, sometimes they have mantras, sometimes they do meditation and yoga. They see that there's an essence with good energy, positive energy. They say, look, it's not just this physical existence. Something exists, but no organized religion. Don't give me any of that hullabaloo. So there's an existence to that, an acknowledgement. So if you cared so much about your physical well-being, are you going to neglect the spiritual one? There was a narration by Imam Hassan AlSheraa to which he says, I become astonished at the affair of man. He thinks a lot about what enters his stomach, but never cares to think about what enters his mind. كيف لا يفكر في معقوله. How come he doesn't think about that which enters his consciousness? يفكر في مأكوله. But he thinks about that which he eats often. What you put inside your spirit, the music that is listened to, the negative words that you surround yourself with, you wouldn't eat something polluted, something corrupted, but it's fine when you play this song that has the most disgusting venom being spewed on a daily basis. Vitriol, a hatred, objectifying, commodifying the women, commodifying the men, commodifying and objectifying body. We can even use terms that I don't even want to entertain, unbefitting for this member. Hedonism, materialism to the highest degree, that's easy for you to have in your brain. The body will get weak, but the brain, consciousness, the spirit, the nafs, the ruh, it is real. The non-Muslim acknowledges it. So who do I go for that? The arif. I need to go to the one that has attained the highest level of bliss. One of the greatest ways to determine if a scholar is a scholar is if they don't call themselves a scholar. Because a scholar knows that there's no need to show my credentials. My actions speak louder. My actions speak louder than my words. Ayatollah al-Sheikh Taqi Bahjat, rahmatullah alayh, when he ever would sign anything, he would write, Al-Ahqar Bahjat, the wretched one, Bahjat. The grand Ayatollahs today in Najaf, for example, Sayyid al-Sistani, Hafidhullah, he writes, Ali al-Sistani. Oftentimes, if someone comes and says in front of you, yes, I have 1, 2, and 3, please refer to me as this from now on, you're asking from people to, look, I won't humble myself to come down to your level. I expect you to come to mine. That's not how it should be. A scholar is one that doesn't boast themselves. Their actions speak louder than their words. One day, Abu Tayhan, Malik ibn Hamza says, we used to love Ali ibn Abi Talib for a whole host of reasons, but one reason I loved him is because he would always sit with us. He would never sit on a tall chair and we would be beneath him. When he would address people, he would have to stand so they all can hear and see. But when it was time to join us, he would sit on the floor with us. That just like the way the Prophet did. Whenever there were servants and slaves, he would join them. One day, Imam Hussain himself was walking through Kufa and he saw a bunch of slaves and homeless gathering together, eating some of the humble food they had for the day, bread and some oil and some salt. They said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, hayya bina, come and join us. Imam al-Hussein says, that's fine. He comes and sits on the street and joins them and eats. The Imam, after he finishes, he says, لَقَدْ أَجَبْتَكُمْ فَأَجِيبُونِي. I have answered you, now you must answer me. They said, so what do you want? I invite you all to my home right now. This was Ahlul Bayt. These were the Ahl Bayt of karama and generosity and dignity. Not saying I'm too high, I'm too above, willing to go to the lowest of society, just to say that, look, I am one of you. Just like our messenger of God, إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. I am just like another human among you. The only difference, yuha ilay. I just received revelation. Such that he was always involved with the people and their affairs. They would say, مَا لِي هَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامُ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. What kind of a Rasul is this supposed to be? He eats the food we eat and he walks in our markets. How is this a genuine, real messenger of God? Because he can only be that way if you want to relate to him. God is so good that he gave you a messenger that you could say, I can follow you because you are someone I can relate to. Many youth ask this, how can I relate to the Ahlul Bayt? They're so perfect. Well, hold on. But they are humans and you are human. And when they get cut, they bleed and you bleed. The only difference is they are the recipients of God's revelation and divine order. One day, a man came to Al-Imam As-Sadiq and he said to him, Ya ibn Rasulillah, can you sin? That's the question that people ask. Can the Ahlul Bayt sin? Or is it impossible? It's a theological question. Imam As-Sadiq said, I can sin. There's nothing stopping me from taking that and drinking that and saying that and doing that and not praying. I can sin. I just choose never to do so. The man said, I still can't process. Can you explain? Imam As-Sadiq says, do you have some time? Follow me. Imam As-Sadiq took him to a butcher shop. And in the butcher shop, you guys know what a butcher is, the one who deals with meat and begins to process it. He says to the butcher, do you have those leftovers, old scraps of meat that no one wants to eat from the animal? I don't know, you could say some regions and parts that people avoid. This part is not meant to be eaten. Do you have that? The butcher said, yes, yabna Rasulullah, but the thing is, it's really dirty, it's filthy. Are you sure you want to see it? He's like, yeah, I really do. The man said, it's in the back. So Imam As-Sadiq took the person asking him initially, are you able to sin? He takes him to this room and he looks at it. I can imagine the man is like holding his nose. He says, what is this? Imam As-Sadiq said, do you see that? He says, yeah. He says, will you ever eat it? He says, no way. Imam As-Sadiq said, would you even think about eating it? He says, I wouldn't even think about eating it, let alone eat it. He says, this is how we view sinning. Not only do we never do it, we don't even think about doing it. The man said, this is why you guys are those who are the recipients of Allah's Risalah. Because it's not like Allah designed you impossible to make sin. Nothing, like you said, is stopping you. But you view sin the same way you view eating this rubbish and leftover trash. If you next time, now you find the formula clear, if you next time see yourself on the brink of sinning, view that like a qadara. View that like something, like it's a defilement. It's gross. Because many of the sins are entertaining, drinking. But in reality, just think deeply. After the drink, that hangover they talk about is the most painful and shameful experience. It's the most pathetic. In 2018, CNN issued a research article by Oxford University where they examined over 24,000 test subjects. It turns out that there is absolutely no safe level of consuming alcohol. Any amount reduces the size of the brain's gray matter. 2018, they brought this forth. So at the moment, it's all glam, it's all fun. In reality, there is something that's going to bring about destruction to your existence and your essence. Hence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 1400 years ago says that إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. That surely drinking is from the defilements of shaitan. Given all of this, we reach a point that the next best thing are all the ulama. The scholars of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they today, alhamdulillah, we can see the outcome of their efforts. That they are no longer just scholars, they become leaders for us. That whatever they order, you can even find the likes such as other world leaders taking their example. When the Pope visits one of your scholars, be proud. When the Yazidi women who were butchered and subject to rape by Daesh need shelter, and they're given homes in Babu Madinatu Ilmi Rasulillah in Najaf al-Ashraf from the stipend of the Hawza students, be proud. When your scholar is nominated 4 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, be proud. And this is one scholar I'm mentioning. All of our ulama are beacons that should make you and I proud. In 2015, Samahat Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Jawad al-Alawi al-Barujurdi, one of our maraji in Qom, wrote a letter to the Buddhist Dalai Lama, the Buddhist marja, if you will. This is when the Myanmar crisis went on, when the Buddhist monks were killing Muslims in Myanmar, the Rohingya crisis. He wrote a letter to him saying, if you claim to be a man of peace, flaunting that Nobel Peace Prize, in your backyard, innocents are being killed because they say La ilaha illallah. Address this. The Dalai Lama received his letter and sent a letter back to him. And he said, this is under our concern and we will address this. It is of the biggest concern to us. After a year, they stopped it because pressure was piling on. Now that, I can't say is the only reason why, political decisions of course, but a variable that we should remember is our ulama are always there when the going gets tough. They determine for us that they are true scholarship. The other component is their akhlaq. Wallahi al-azim. The akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt can be found in the akhlaq of some of our ulama. The way you see their humility and humbleness. There is a hadith that mentions, I had the honor of sitting next to one of our maraja and translating from Arabic to the English for a ziyarah group. And I remember I had some trouble translating, not because I didn't know what he was saying, but every time this scholar would speak, I personally was fixed, staring into his eyes, that sometimes I would doze off and I would not pay attention to the words. And I found it difficult for some reason, even though the advice is simple and I was jotting it down. I don't know why. It was sometimes I found myself just getting a bit distracted. And then I realized what's happening. I phoned one of our dear friends and scholars, and he said, well, there's a hadith that says, النظر في وجه العالم عبادة, that gazing upon the face of the true scholars of Ahlul Bayt is a form of worship, my dear respected brothers and sisters. So you were probably busy doing ibadah than busy paying attention to the statements. And this was like a scholar I really have wanted to see. Given all of that, there are sometimes charlatans, my dear respected brothers and sisters. There is a man, don't be deceived. A true alim can be identified. Remember the akhlaq. Remember, there's no ego. They're showing, believe me, I'm a true scholar. Their actions speak louder. There are charlatans out there. There was a man by the name of Shuraih al-Qadi. Shuraih al-Qadi was a judge that was placed in Basra, south of Iraq, and he was placed by Umar ibn al-Khattab as the judge. When Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen came, Imam Ali left him. He didn't act against the teachings of the Kitab and the Sunnah of the Messenger. He kept him. Later on, when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, this is what? A judge. When Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad came to Kufa, he wanted to justify shar'an, the killing of Imam Hussain. Sometimes you think often, these guys are barbaric. They just killed and killed and killed. They had justification, or at least pseudo-motivation, proving that what they were doing was sanctioned by Allah. Do you remember Ibn Ziyad, when he sees Sayyidah Zaynab in court, what does he say to her? كَيْفَ رَأَيْتِ صُنْعَ اللَّهِ بِأَخِيكِ. How do you see what God has done? They're always justifying this religiously. It wasn't us. Allah had you killed. You were Khawarij. Shuraih is in Kufa. He's this big scholar. Big beard. Big turban. Don't be deceived by looks, brothers and sisters. You can have an alim, 5 years old, like Jawad al-A'imma. Or you can have someone old as Nuh and have that ilm be impeccable. Don't be deceived by looks or age or gender. These ulama, they transcend all these qualities. He calls Shuraih. Who? Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Shuraih says what? I need a death fatwa. Death fatwa. Shuraih says, who? He says, this one is going to be a big one though. Who do we need to kill? He says, Hussein ibn Ali. He's on his way. I need you to justify that his death was sanctioned by Allah. You're the scholar here. Shuraih didn't think he was going to have to issue a fatwa against Sayyid al-Shuhada. So you know what he said? He says, Ya ibn Ziyad, this one is going to cost you some money. Hussein's blood is not cheap. He says, how much do you want? He says, how much do you think? He says, would you like 10,000 dinar? You know how much 10,000 dinar is? Dinar is gold. A dirham is silver. 1 dinar gold is equivalent to 10 darahim. Did you want 10,000? Says no. 500 dinar is equivalent to $2,000 today. He says no. How much? You decide. 50,000 dinar? That's a lot of money. It's like, no, not for the blood of Hussein. It has to be more than that. I'll be big heat for doing this fatwa. He said, how much? Eventually, Ibn Ziyad said they agreed on 400,000 dinar. He says, I'm going to write you the mother of all fatwas. He wrote it down, stamped it with his pathetic seal, and he came outside and the crowd was gathering. Shuraih had a big announcement. The marja is going to issue, and he is the furthest things from our maraja. I should even mention in the same sentence. He's going to issue, this big scholar, What is the statement? He reads it out loud. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna al-Hussain kharaja an dini jaddah fayuqtal bisayfi jaddah. Hussein has left the deen of his grandfather. So now he will be killed with the same sword of his grandfather, Shurayh al-Qadi. When they had religious justification, and no one wants to jump political, oftentimes there are many world leaders, they don't have the religious background. So they'll get the scholar and say, you justify what we're going to do on a political level. So we can kill. People will fight us. But if we have religious justification, people will be more accepted of this. Shurayh does that. There are pseudo-scholars. They exist. But they were ever scholars? Never were they ever scholars of Ahlul Bayt. Because an alim sees the truth and the haqiqah. What were they? These were just sources of some pieces of information. But what differentiates a true alim is if they have hikmah, if they're hakim. Because a hakim knows how to use ilm. An alim who is just a source of information just has ilm. But if you know how to use it, you become a hakim and hakim in this regard. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam taught us, من نظر في حلالنا وحرامنا وعرف أحكامنا فعلى العوام أن يقلدوه. This is a Sahih hadith. Aban bin Taghlib narrates as well, Sahih and Thiqah, that he or she, whoever looks into our halal and our haram and knows our ahkam, then upon the laity, this is me, you, all of us, upon us is to follow them from a logical point of view and perspective. It doesn't even stop there. Al-Imam al-Hujjah himself dealt with pseudo-scholars that came forth and took advantage of the ghaibah. Hence why Shaykh al-Saduq mentions that in the time of the dhuhur, there will be fake scholarly claimants. Again, fake. And when I say fake, it's not like we never thought this would be the case. We always thought you were an upright person. It was always quite clear. Akhlaq was never there. My father says in Qom al-Muqaddasa, 30 years ago, there was a friend that he had in the Hawza. He says this man genuinely was one of the most bright students I've ever seen, studying under the grandest of maraja. But I always noticed something about him. My father says he would always use profanity, always use ill and dirty language. It's like it's so wrong that here you are quoting this qaida usuliyya, this principle in al-amarat, this qaida fiqhiyya, and you could just pull them from your memory, but you use fushuh, dirty language. Do you know what happened to this guy? He became a top quality, whatever you want to call him. Eventually, he became a Wahhabi. He left the way of Ahlul Bayt, he became a Wahhabi. Then, after he became a Wahhabi, he moved away to a Wahhabi central area. Afterwards, he also left Wahhabism and he became a secular news analyst. Hussain al-Mu'ayyad. Look him up later. Hussain al-Mu'ayyad. You find photos, Shia scholar attire, non-Shia scholar attire, then a suit and a tie. The levels he went through. At the very beginning, you could see that if a person doesn't have the akhlaq, they're not going to get far. Shaykh al-Saduq mentions that some will emerge from this category of pseudo-scholar claimants, and they will see the Imam and will say, Irja' ibn Fatima haythu atayt, la hajata lana bik. Go back to where you came from, O son of Zahra. We don't need you, because if you come, who's going to follow us now? Who's going to send us now? Who's going to take our claims anymore? Go back to where you came from. And Imam al-Mahdi made a clear announcement through his last wakil, through his last safir, Ali bin Muhammad. He said, I'm going to die in 3 days, the last wakil of Imam al-Mahdi. But before I go, I'm going to make a large announcement. أما الحوادث الواقعة فارجعوا فيها إلى روات حديثنا فإنهم حجتي عليكم وأنا حجة الله. As for any living issue, anything, refer back to those who narrate our hadith, for they are my hujjah, my proof upon you, and I am the hujjah of Allah. The narrators of the hadith are the ulama. And yes, ulama can have differences. I will provide one example. And it's no issue, by the way, these differences. If you, for example, saw a car crash, let's say God forbid, in this car crash, the police want to see the perspective of the witnesses. Will they all narrate what happened exactly? One will give a description, one will give another description, so they come to a similar conclusion, but using different methodologies. And in some rare cases, they'll come into a different conclusion. Sometimes you'll see that's why we have different announcements on the Eid, on Hilal, just because they study the same source, but they end up with different conclusions. Is that bad? No, it's not. It's them doing their best. Can you force someone to have a different opinion? If they said, I came to this conclusion, brother, this is what I studied and this is how I realize it. In my opinion, this is the best way to understand this hadith. I'll give you an example. There is a narrator of the hadith by the name of Hakim Mu'adhan Bani Isa. Hakim Mu'adhan Bani Isa is a companion of Imam As-Sadiq. An-Najashi, the one who writes the biographies of Ilm al-Rijal and others, doesn't write about Hakim that he is a thiqah. Doesn't say that he is reliable. He says, I don't know about him enough so I can say he's reliable. Meaning what? If I see him in a hadith, I can't 100% say that hadith is what? Sahih. So the hadith becomes at the very most mu'tabar, acceptable, but don't say it's sahih. Who uses this methodology? Someone like Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khoi. Sayyid al-Khoi really uses the methodologies of the earlier Ilm al-Rijal biographers. He says, whatever they say, I follow. I use the material that's out there. And so if Sayyid al-Khoi sees Hakim, Mu'adhan Bani Isa in a hadith, in one of the chains, he says this hadith is not sahih because the scholars of Rijal haven't given him that. It's not because he's weak. We just don't know. Sayyid Hussain al-Barojurdi, the grand marja' before Sayyid al-Khoi, has a different opinion on Hakim. What does he say? He's like, la, just because An-Najashi or those of the scholars of Ilm al-Rijal, just because they didn't say he's thiqah, doesn't mean he's not reliable. How? He uses context clues. Hakim, what's his full name? Mu'adhan Bani Isa. Mu'adhan means what? Adhan. He gets that title how? Because back then especially, to be a mu'adhan, brothers and sisters, means it was a paid position. Now the mu'adhan doesn't get paid, although some of the guys that do adhan would wish we could pay them, inshallah. Hopefully we can give them something. But back then it was a paid position. But in order to be a mu'adhan, have this role, you have to be what? Reliable. How? Because we trust you to wake us up for salah. What does that make them? If we trust you for the sake of salah, you have to give us the adhan exactly 5 times. Exactly. That means he's what? Trustworthy by the society. Not only that, Hakim, mu'adhan of who? Bani Isa. Bani Isa is a family who is known to be a very close family to the Ahlul Bayt. So they wouldn't just bring someone in their group if they weren't upright. So Sayyid Hussain Barojurdi, the marja', says, in my opinion, he's reliable. What did he use? Context clues. Someone like Sayyid al-Khoi, what does he use? Ilm al-Rijal. Of course, Sayyid Hussain does al-Barojurdi, but he says, I was strictly restricted to what the earlier scholars said about him. And at the end, you have 2 different conclusions. Do you see how both of them are justified? We trust the earlier resources, but we also trust context clues. And that's the beauty of ijtihad, my dear respected brothers and sisters. It's not a crisis that we have 2 different opinions at the end of the day. It's just the best we could do in the absence of the 12th awaited Imam, Ajjalullah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Given all of this, after issuing a death fatwa against Imam al-Hussein, Sayyid al-Shuhada, having left his brother Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas by the Furat river, Sayyid al-Shuhada now returns to say goodbye to his family. He has now decided to go and fight. Before he goes, as soon as he leaves, he hears a call. Mahlan mahla, ya ibn al-Zahra. Slowly, slowly, O the son of Fatima al-Zahra. He turns around, he sees his Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. And he sees her holding his young newborn baby, Abdullah al-Radi', otherwise known as Ali al-Asghar. Al-Radi' is the son of Rabab, Sayyida Rabab. He is also the direct brother of a Sayyida Sukayna. Imam Hussain has poems how much he talks about his love for Rabab and Sukayna. He says, لَعَمْرُكَ إِنِّنِي لِأُحِبُّ دَارًا تَحِلُّ بِهَا سُكَيْنَةُ وَالرَّبَابُ أُحِبُّهُمَا وَأَبْذِلُ جُلَّ مَالِي وَلَيْسَ بِلَائِمِ فِيهَا عِتَابُ. How I love a house that has inside it my two precious and beloved ones, Sukayna and Rabab. I spend all my money I can at them. And for the one who says, why do you do that? Don't worry, you don't know what I have. And this also includes my baby boy as well. Sayyida Zainab says to him, this young Radi', the suckling infant, has not had milk in a very long time. And he has become dry, jaffa, he's become dry in his lips. See if you can convince the other side if they could have some heart to give him water, a little bit of water. Imam al-Hussain, whenever he would go to address the opposition, he would either go in a horse if he was going to fight, but if he's going to preach to them, he would take the camel. But this time, he does something they've never seen him do. He goes walking, holding his baby. It's different this time. Imam al-Hussain approaches, they all see him astonished. What is he doing and what could he possibly want with a baby now? What's happening? This is after all his companions have died. They're thinking, is he going to fight? But he's holding a baby. What's going on? Imam al-Hussain begins to announce to them, "O the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, if us adults have committed crimes, then that's our fault. But what is the crime of a 6-month-old baby? What fault is his? If you find it in yourselves, give him some water." Imam al-Hussain stood there and they did nothing. The Imam thought that maybe they are afraid of him, and of course they were. So what did Imam Hussain do? He says, "I'll leave him if you want." He leaves him down in the land of Karbala and he walks a few steps back. "Can one of you come and just give my boy water? Can you come and just give him some water? Less than whatever we have. We drink and we have half of it and we forget and throw it. I need just some water for my baby. If you're afraid because I'm holding him, I'll leave him on the ground alone in Karbala. I'll leave." And he walks back a few steps. Al-Radi' is crying on the floor, but no tears are coming out. He comes back to him and he sees nothing happened. Imam al-Hussain then raises him as such. The opposition begin to say, fighting with one another, "For the love of God, give the baby some water. He's making us heartbroken." One of them says, "No, don't give him any water." The other says, "Just, it won't affect you. Send him some water." Shimar ibn Dhul Jawshan then says, "O Hussein, if we had the entire sea in our possession, wallah, we wouldn't even give you a single drop, not you or your baby boy." At that moment, Umar ibn Sa'ad then turned and looked at Harmala ibn Kahil and he said to him, "O Harmala, finish this dispute between our men. Many of them are beginning to cry and many of them are having a turn of heart. Hussein is changing us through his baby boy." Harmala bin Kahil narrates that I then picked up my 3-pronged arrow. I then rested it over the fire for a minute. I then got my arrow. I looked to see what was happening and I see Hussein holding his baby, asking, "Will there anyone come and give him some water?" And so I saw for a moment the neck of the baby exposed. And then I decided to take that arrow and I decided to pull it back in my bow, and I can see the young baby of Imam Hussain, how he is cradled in his father's hands, and I could see that he grew no older than 6 months old, but I had an order to fulfill. At that moment, Harmala bin Kahil returned his arrow at his bow. He aimed it at the neck of the baby Abdullah al-Radhi', and he shot the arrow. He narrates that it went through the neck of Abdullah and to the other side. From the heat of the arrow, he pulled out his arms and he grabbed onto his father, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. He began to flap his hands like a bird flaps his wings. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, already with his heart broken and torn, he collects the blood from the neck of his son and he tells him, ease and ease, soon you will be comforted, my beloved baby. He collects the blood from his neck and he throws it to the sky. Imam al-Baqir narrates, I didn't see a single drop come down of his blessed blood. He then begins to say, oh Allah, make this easy on me, for it weighs immensely to see that this is what it is, and if it's within your satisfaction, oh Allah, take until you are satisfied. Imam al-Hussein returns back to the tents. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know who to take the baby to. Does he take the baby to his mom? But what mom could handle seeing an arrow in her baby's neck? Do you know where Imam al-Hussein took Abdullah al-Asghar? He brought him to al-Masa'ib. He brought him to the mother of patience, Zainab. He gives her the baby, and then she begins to say, Wa Abdullah, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. فرج عنا يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها فرج عنا، شافي مرضانا، اقضي حوائجنا، فرج عنا. وإلى أرواح العلماء والشهداء سيما من أوصانا بالدعاء، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة بعد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.